Party Trick Astrology. I'm Nina.
I'm Shaina.
And this is another installment of our Lilith series, Lilith in the Second House. So if you don't know, in this Lilith series, we're doing Lilith through the signs and Lilith through the houses. So we've done Lilith in Aries, Lilith in the first house, and we've done Lilith in Taurus, and now this video is Lilith in the second house.
Yes, we do the Black Moon Lilith. This can relate to the true Lilith, the mean Lilith. That's kind of what we're focusing on. If you're wondering a little bit more about Lilith in general, we have a whole video also about that. And actually, we have two resident Lilith in the second house people right here. I have it, my true and my mean Lilith is in the second house, and Nina's mean Lilith is in the second house.
Yes. So this video might get a little personal. We don't know yet. But let's dive into it. I don't feel like we have any reason to keep on procrastinating.
Lilith in the second house, it obviously has so much to do about your things, about what you own, how you take care of it, your self-worth and your value. And
it's a very nonsensical node. It's kind of like that itch you have to scratch, and it can be very compulsive. It's a very dark feminine placement in your chart.
Yes, it has everything to do with an intense desire that isn't balanced with any kind of logical thing. Again, it is a node of the moon, so it has to do with more lunar things, which are these feminine, intuitive, internal qualities. It's also considered, you know, the dark side of the feminine because it is the point on the moon's ecliptic that is farthest away from the earth, farthest away from this sense of grounding and practicality, which is why it's so nonsensical. And we talk a little bit more about that in our All About Lilith series, but that was just to recap it a little bit over here. Now, when it comes to Lilith in the second house, specifically differentiating it from Lilith in Taurus, it is all about material possessions. You have this emotional and obsessive attitude or itch towards material possessions. Lilith also is sort of like a boss. She wants to overpower things. She wants to be on top, quite literally, as you know, in the fable or myth or whatever. She wants to win and own and be in control and powerful. And with Lilith in the second house, what makes you feel that are the things that you literally own.
If you have Lilith in the second house, you probably own a lot of odd things too, you know, like this is like most likely to have a sex toy out or own a shirt with an inappropriate phrase or just own more taboo items, more occult items, you know. Me and Nina both own tarot cards. I think that even though a lot of people own tarot cards, it is a great example of a Lilith in the second house thing. And also, of course, Lilith overdoes things. So Lilith in the second house, I think even more than Lilith in Taurus, is most likely to hoard, most likely to have too many things, have a collection of things for no reason. Also because Lilith is feminine in that, and it can be very emotionally charged. You also might have a very sentimental connection to a lot of items. Like I endow so many things that I own with so much like emotional importance. I become very connected to those things, and that's like another reason why you have trouble getting rid of things.
Totally. And I think that, you know, Lilith is a more subtle thing in the birth chart. It's not a personal planet. It's not even necessarily like a general, it's not a planet at all. Like it's just, it's a more subtle part of the birth chart. So it's not like your entire character necessarily has to be defined by the sexy or taboo or like crazy things you own. Unless you have a very strong Lilith, then maybe you walk into someone's apartment or bedroom and like immediately you're hit with like sex toys and you're hit with occult tarot things and stuff like that. Or maybe it's just like a bit more subtle. Like I think that where my mean Lilith in the second house comes about is just I'm really a lot of times nonsensical with the way that I purchase things. I need to make rules around the way that I purchase things. I also just have this voracious appetite for luxury. Only clean, nice things. Absolutely. Everything that I own, I want it to be the absolute best. And that's what Lilith is. It's just this intense desire, just this want. And the thing is, this appetite is so large, so voracious. I'm also using the word appetite, which is a very Taurus word, that it takes over. It's nonsensical. And sometimes I will just like invest in something that I don't need to invest in and put off investing in something that would be more practical. But that's the thing, is that Lilith comes from this emotional place, this real guttural desire.
This is a huge party trick, but Lilith in the second house is somebody that's like gonna be online shopping a lot, is gonna like take a lot of time to pick out the thing that they want and make sure it's the best, be very protective over it, and not want, and maybe even sometimes like not want people to know where they got it because it's theirs. And you know, that's where, and you know, because the second house is also self-worth, so Lilith in the second house gets a lot of their self-worth from their things, and Lilith is very secretive, so you can even be secretive about how much you buy, where you buy things from, how much you spend on things, like all that kind of stuff, because if you're doing something obsessively, you might not want to know how much you care about these things, you know, and how much you're buying, how much you're shopping, how much you're looking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's something that both me and Shaina, like an attitude that we both have. We like really dislike it when people are very nosy in our personal finances, which people happen to be. I don't know if it's because we're particularly like sensitive and secretive about our personal finances, but like
Thinking that's totally a Lilith in the second house thing. Like, don't ask me about my finances. I don't want to talk about it one way or another. Like, stop asking me how much I pay for my apartment. Stop asking me for this. Stop asking me how much I make. Da 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 da. You know, or being like ridiculed for like, even like Nina's mentioned, like how much you charge for astrology readings. Like that stuff is very like Lilith in the second house.
Also, on another note, Lilith in the second house in a very dark sense can be a big kleptomaniac. They can steal a lot of stuff, steal from things and people they know. Also, it doesn't have to be as like literally stealing. It could just be like you just wind up also just collecting things from people after a while. And also I feel like a lot of the whole like kleptomaniac stealing thing comes from kind of what we talked about in the Lilith and Taurus video. There is a sense of entitlement. Lilith in the second house definitely has a sense of entitlement. Like, I deserve this, I deserve that, I deserve nice things. You know, I deserve to own this. So if I can't afford to own this, then I'm just gonna get it anyway that I have to because this should be mine, you know, is the very like Lilith attitude of things.
Definitely. Or inversely, there can be a difficulty with like sharing. Like, I have no problem with giving to people. I love giving to people. I love giving gifts. Like, that's a huge love language for me. But when it comes to like someone even drinking out of my own cup, like, I don't like that. I don't like sharing in that way.
Yeah, like, as a kid, this was Lilith in the second house is like a major roast on myself. Like, if I have all these Bratz dolls and I got a new Bratz doll, I'm playing with the new Bratz doll. Everyone else is playing with my old shabby Bratz dolls. Lilith in the second house is that person, you know? To go over to their house and they give you the shitty controller every time and they get to play with the good one always. That's Lilith in the second house. Doesn't share, doesn't play well with others too well in that way. Like, yeah, me and Nina are both like, I feel like the Lilith in the second house thing is like, we'll give you a thing because it's yours to take care of, you know? And it's yours to do what you want, but mine is mine and what's yours is yours can be Lilith in the second house attitude, and it can be a little bit cutthroat, and it can be a little bit, just as it sounds, it can be not very generous, you know? It's not just come and use my stuff how you want, da-da-da-da. No, it's very, very picky, and it will be very upset at you and make sure to point it out and make sure you feel bad if you use something of theirs and you mess it up or something happens to it, da-da-da-da. And a lot of that also comes because, like I said, they all, Lilith in the second house is a huge emotional connection to things for some, even if it's something silly like, oh, this is a brush, this is my good fucking brush, you know, and there's like a connection to it, even though it's something silly, you know. So definitely like irrational responses to people like using or breaking their items. Oh my god, like when I lose something, I get pissed. I always am like, I don't lose things. Like, I need to know where every single item of mine is, and I like have to have like an inventory. And if it's not where it's supposed to be, I'm like, alert everyone, this is terrible. Like, and it's just something small that I'll probably never use, you know?
I also think that there's, this is like kind of another personal take on this placement. Like I said at the beginning, like this is probably going to be a really personal video, but it reminded me because you said Bratz doll. And I think that Lilith in the second house might be responsible for like this fear or like secrecy surrounding saying what you want, like actually talking about what you desire, especially like on a physical level. Because I remember like all I wanted when I was like 8 years old was a Bratz doll, but my parents were never gonna get me a Bratz doll. So I never like said to anyone that I wanted a Bratz doll. And then I was like, my birthday's coming up, someone's gotta get me a Bratz doll. And then my mom, it's ridiculous how my memory works. My mom came and she said like, oh, let's give this person a fake name. Oh, Sally is asking like, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, a Bratz doll, a Bratz doll, a Bratz doll. Sally should get me a Bratz doll. And I'm like, I don't know. Because it just feels like all of your desires and what you want on a physical level are so personal or secretive or just like so intense that it's hard for you to even like vocalize it. I think that that might be a Lilith in the second house type of thing.
Yeah, I think so also because I'm sure that just comes from like obsessively wanting something so much that you don't want to let it slip how much you want something. You know what I mean? Because you're like, if I even say it once, then you'll have this fear that they'll know how much it matters and how much it's going through your mind maybe. Or they'll try to like break down the reasons as to why you want this thing, and you're like, I don't, you know what I mean? Because there probably is some charge. Even if there is or isn't, they might just assume there's something behind it. Or again, it's like an obsession, so it's like, and Lilith is secretive. Gotta keep that stuff private because it's embarrassing too sometimes, you know, what you might actually want.
Yeah, and there's also like a certain element to like power that Lilith has. So you don't want to like reveal, or you don't want to subvert your own power by putting it in someone else's hands, I guess. Like if you're depending on Sally to give you a Bratz doll, that is a place of utmost powerlessness for a Lilith in the second house.
Yeah, and they'll give you the wrong Bratz doll. They won't give you the one that you've been obsessing about, that you've been thinking about. Like, what will you do if you get the wrong one? Then it's just pointless. Like, literally, we celebrated kind of like a mini Hanukkah here, and one of the gifts that I bought and picked out for myself, and I love it. I love when I get to buy and pick out, like, no, I didn't buy them, I didn't spend the money, but I love when I get to literally just, like, pick out exactly what I want. It's, like, the best gift for me because nobody knows what I want better than me. And I can be pretty annoying to try and get a gift for, because if I want something, I probably have it, or you don't know because I'm not talking about it. I'm like scheming how I'm gonna get it, you know?
Yeah, there can be so much like time and energy and emotion dedicated to physical things. We got a comment on one of our Lilith videos of like, oh, this is a pretty negative interpretation of Lilith. Like, I've seen other interpretations that aren't so negative. But like, I don't know how to communicate any less simply that like Lilith is not inherently a good thing. Wherever Lilith is, she's fucking shit up. It's a weak spot. It's, you know, a kryptonite, really. So that's what Lilith is.
This is a personal story, but it was just a very Lilith in the second house experience. So this is a little bit more serious, but so I recently got something in the mail, and it was basically like my mom recently passed, and it was some money from her passing, which I wasn't expecting. And of course, like that just like ruined my whole day for obviously many reasons and many days to come. I guess I'm not explaining myself well. Like, I don't want you to think that I like get money in the mail and I'm like, ah, fuck this. It's just like oh, so now my mom equals like a money amount, and like her time that's missing is now like in a numerical value, which as a Lilith in the second house I think is pretty fucked up, but I think it's also very Lilith in the second house experience to experience somebody literally having a numerical number on them, because Lilith in the second house can very much feel that way, like everybody's a number, and you know, it's like a rating system almost. I immediately put it away, and I'm like very scared to touch it because I'm like, something needs to be worth spending it on, and my Lilith in the second house will be like, nothing will ever be worth spending it on. The only thing I got was like a dress, and like that's very Lilith in the second house. Like I felt really bad, and I was like, I was wanting this dress for a while, and so I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy this one dress, and now that will like forever be like my dad's mom's money, you know, financial dress, like, and have this like big weight on it. But that is a very Lilith in the second house thing. Like Lilith is very heavy, so Lilith in the second house can get money from very odd ways, very depressing ways, very intense ways, very illegal ways. That's just something that I've realized. I've always gotten like money in very odd, very secretive ways. Oh, scamming. Oh my god. As a Lilith in the second house, I have gotten scammed twice majorly in my life, I would say, probably, and I feel like I have a lifetime of it, and like that's a huge thing too, like people stealing your money. Like not only do you steal and you can be very like kleptomaniac-y, but you can very much get money stolen from you, and that can in turn make you very bitter about the way that things work out, very you know, Lilithy towards the financial system, which will cause you to maybe even do more perverse things, you know? Very Lilith, like, I was hurt in this way, so now I'm gonna go back tenfold and say, fuck you, you know?
The thing that we keep on bringing up in this series is how Lilith has this obsession and this desire towards whatever it does, depending on what sign and house that it's in, because it didn't have it before. And when it comes to Lilith in the second house, that is a matter of like personal value, personal resources, which is why it's like very accurate what Shaina said about people potentially stealing from you, people taking away from your pool of personal resources. Maybe it has to do with money, maybe it has to do with other things like time. I know that both Shaina and I are very sensitive about people wasting our time, but any kind of resource, people might take that away from you. And that's why Lilith in the second house will tend to cling to their resources. And that's again where that entitlement comes from. Like, I am entitled to my time, I am entitled to my things, because you want to cling to those things. You want to get that power, because Lilith got her freedom and independence because she deliberately pursued it after not getting it in the Garden of Eden. So after experiencing like basically being refused your desires, you will pursue it wholeheartedly. And that's like the real energy of Lilith. So you probably, as a Lilith in the second house, have experiences of people taking things away from you, people abusing your resources in some kind of way. And so there is this clinginess, this obsession, this tight grip on your things and what you want, and that's why you fixate on the things that you want. That's why you indulge in the things that you want. And it's so nonsensical. It comes from such an emotional place that you can be very self-destructive by pursuing the things that you want, by buying things that aren't necessarily the wisest things for you to spend money on or for you to spend any kind of resource on, you know?
Because like a lot of Lilith is like, first you were cast out with Lilith, and so now you're overextending it is a lot to do with it. And we said this is probably going to be very personal, as our personal placements always are. But like growing up, I was around a bunch of kids that were all older than me, all about like 1 to 4 years older than me, and they were pretty much like all girls. So I got like nothing but hand-me-downs, and I loved those hand-me-downs, but you know, I'd always get them like a year or two after it was cool, and like pretty much my closet was just full of hand-me-downs of other people's clothes, blah blah blah. So now, you know, looking into my closet, what do I have? way too many of my own clothes. You know what I mean? Because I used to have everyone else's clothes that was always a few years late to the trends. So now I have a shit ton of my own clothes that I also got on sale years late to whatever the trend is currently, you know? So yeah, I can definitely kind of like overcompensate and like flip around like that.
Definitely. And collections of any kind are a very Lilith in the second house kind of thing. I specifically collected a lot of things as a kid. I've kind of grown out of that, but I was a huge collector.
Me too, yo.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that like because it's a fixed house, there's this desire to like want to preserve your things and like keep a sense of newness to your things. Like I remember, I'm just remembering so many childhood stories because I feel like your Lilith is just the most active when you're young, especially because it's my mean Lilith that's in the second house. So that's the Lilith that I have a bit more consciousness surrounding and a bit more like of an ability to control than my true Lilith. But I'm remembering like I had dolls and stuffed animals. I had this American Girl doll that came with pre-made braids, and my friend wanted to undo the braids. And I was like, no, you cannot undo those factory made American Girl doll braids or I will cry. I was never the kind of kid to cut my doll's hairs, to like do anything like that. It's like, no, you can't change my toys. You can't.
Yeah, you know, we're just gonna be sharing stories, but Taurus is known for wanting a security blanket, you know, being very connected to their things. I had a stuffed animal bunny rabbit that I literally carried with me everywhere I went and I went to sleep with. I just refused to take out of the house because I didn't want like any chance of me losing this stuffed animal. Oh my God. I'm so glad that I still have this thing because I think my parents would not have been able to deal with it. Like, I would have not been able to deal with it if I lost this thing. You know, this was my stuffed animal. Nobody else brought it around. Like, there's just that security and always having that comfortable thing around you kind of at all times, you know, bringing that around. And so much it can translate to, like, people. Like, the people that you have close to you, it can feel like they're this safe thing that you want to almost like follow you around at all times and like be your security blanket kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely. Lilith does have to do with our dominance over things and people. So it can also translate to seeing people as objects or just like that overall sense of entitlement, or even what Shaina said like earlier, almost putting numerical values to people.
Also, Lilith in the second house, you know, Lilith represents independence. So this can represent somebody who's very hyper independent with their money, manages their own money, you know. I check my bank account all the time. I'm always exactly on the up and up about what's going on. I'm very protective over it. And I'm like always on my shit. Like, I'm like, okay, I have to pay this now. I have to pay this now. You know, like very, very, very hyper scared of like missing a payment, owing anybody anything. I think that's a huge thing too with Lilith in the second house. I've never liked owing anyone anything, especially money. I don't like that idea. As a kid, even if I would like borrow someone's quarter, I'd be like thinking about it all day and I need to get that quarter back to them, and the next day I'd be like, here's your quarter, like that I owe you. I don't want to owe you anything. This is off me now. Like I feel like it can definitely go in the way of like overspending, which you can do, but it can also do this thing of like obsessively like a fear, you know. Lilith is very scared, a fear of getting into debt, a fear of owing anybody anything, because when you owe something, because you know it is the house of self-worth, it can feel very much like, you know, like your self-worth is very connected to your bank account, but also your self-worth is connected, like, if you owe somebody money, you don't want to feel like you owe them something as well, like you as a person then owes them, and you don't want that, you know. I don't know how else to say it, you know.
Absolutely, because Lilith has to do with power, and with Lilith in the second house, if your bank account of self-worth, self-value, or literal bank account is in the red or in debt in any kind of way, you feel powerless, especially when it is in the red because you owe someone else, that means that they have power over you, which is Lilith's biggest fear. Maybe not fear, biggest sore spot, biggest, like, just Lilith does not want that in any way, shape, or form. Lilith in the second house does not want anyone to have anything that is theirs, does not want anyone to have any influence on their value, on their personal finance, anything like that. That doesn't mean that it's always a healthy thing. We're just saying how the psychological makeup of a Lilith in the second house might be.
I feel like with Lilith in the second house, I feel like the ideal financial situation is somehow getting, you know, heaps of money for doing something that they want to do, which is very Lilith. They have to want to do it, you know, their own job, their own boss, they're independent. It's probably just them or a few people working around them or below them, probably, you know, them making easy money. And then I feel like Lilith in the second house very much wants to be the sugar daddy of the situation. You know, Lilith in the second house wants to give money to that one person that they pick, that they deem worthy, you know, like taking care of them. I feel like is definitely more of like the pimp too, you know, in this situation where, because, you know, Lilith obviously represents a lot of like sexual undercurrent stuff. So Lilith in the second house you might think is like sex work, but I think of it more as like the pimp probably going to do what it wants to do when it wants to do it, how it wants to do it, and it's me, bitch, and I'm telling me that I like me, and you can't tell me if I like me, because all that matters is how I feel about me, you know what I mean? It wants to be the person, like the pimp, that has all the people working for them. You know, that's also very Lilith in the second house, kind of owning people. Now this is obviously an extreme version, but we always got to go to the extremes here, okay guys? So it's kind of like, you know, you are the overlooker, you own these people, they pay you for sitting around and doing nothing, and they go off and do all the hard work, can also be a very Lilith in the second house thing. Also, that's a real shady way to get money, you know?
Yeah, what Shaina said, like, hit the nail on the head. It is, Lilith doesn't want to share, like we said, doesn't want to share its things, but it is totally okay with giving. And part of that is because giving, in a way, especially in like a sugar daddy sense or a pimp sense, is like owning. It's like that person also is a resource of yours in some way. That person also belongs to your second house, like in the case of a pimp, or even in the case of a sugar daddy, like that person is your precious object. And so of course you pay for it, like you would put a deposit down on a mortgage, but you just like have that ownership over that person. So it can get really dark. Of course it can be totally, what's the word? Consensual. It can be a dynamic that both parties are willfully and enthusiastically participating in, but it can also like turn to that dark side.
I totally forgot that I want to mention some people with Lilith in the second house real quick. Gonna take a quick intermission.
Us.
I know, us, here we go, it's most important. Beyonce is a Lilith in the second house, which, you know, she has too much money for literally anybody except for a Lilith in the second house, you know? Same with Steve Jobs, too. Let's see here, what else did lots of famous actors in general, I noticed, have Lilith in the second house. So much so I wrote, lots of famous actors I don't care about. Like Robert De Niro, Clint Eastwood, Matthew something, I don't know. Pablo Escobar is a great example because he got his money in the shadiest way, but my God, he was also respected as well in his home country. And Walt Disney, he's a greedy motherfucker. Let's be honest, like Disneyland is literally just a giant gift shop. Northwest, because she just was born into this rich ass family. That can sometimes be Lilith in the second house too. I underlined Betty Page. I don't know, I guess I just really want to emphasize her. Well, she literally wears sexy lingerie, you know what I mean? And that's what she made her career off of, is like being sexual, having self-worth, very like pinup girl, but also just like always wearing seductive things, but never giving it all away, you know? Keeping some for herself, that Lilith thing. Gianni Versace, oh my God, Jim Jones is a Lilith in the second house, yeah.
Jim Jones literally like wanted to own people's lives.
Kind of did, almost basically kind of succeeded.
Also, going into how Lilith in the second house speaks to sexuality, I think that you might have underlined Betty Page because like you said that she's always in sexy lingerie, but like she keeps some to herself. Like she's never too revealing in that way. And I think that Lilith in the second house is probably like not one of the most promiscuous Liliths that you'll find, especially considering how much Lilith does have to do with sexuality. And that's just because there is a huge amount of value that you place on your sexual nature. And there's no wrong way to be sexual, but some people will have an attitude towards their sexuality that is more like, if I want to do something, I want to do it. I want to have fun, be free, whatever. Lilith and Taurus might be even like a bit more attached to the people that they share their body with.
Yeah, that could also have to do with like, you know, Lilith can a lot of times be put on you from other people. This can have to do with like not only you putting that on yourself, but other people also having that mentality towards your sexuality. Like sometimes other people can value your, what's the word, like the opposite of promiscuousness, like your, I don't want to say like chastity, like other people putting way more weight on your innocence than you are, or what you do with your body and who you give it to than you do. And there can feel very much like this outward pressure on the same end. And I feel like that maybe could be where Betty Page was coming from. Like a lot of people maybe were putting a lot of weight on her and then on her sexuality because, you know, always being told she's beautiful or whatever, that I'm sure she came across. I know she has Venus in the first house too, so I'm sure she got that a lot. And then that Lilith mentality of going, oh yeah, fuck you, you're gonna put so much fucking emphasis on this, well then I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna show it to everyone, but also I'm not gonna show it all because it's still mine, but I am going to show it off. You know what I mean? She, you know, very much that kind of like Lilith control, you know, pushing back against it kind of thing. It can also go very much the opposite way as well because of that, you know?
Yeah, this is like back to a little bit of like personal stuff, but I was very like, I guess slut shamed for really, really minor things.
Yeah, I remember you telling me
when I was probably like too young to be slut shamed for like certain things, or even like guys that I wasn't dating or didn't have like any commitment to in like high school, just like guys that were literally just like in the same grade as me, giving me flack for like who I would like kiss, or just like who they thought that I was flirting too much with. And just like, yeah, like I felt very policed in that way, or just like very judged in that way. And that's definitely a Lilith experience, being judged in whatever area that your Lilith is in. And I guess like how that relates to the second house has to do with like your value and how much of yourself you're giving and in what ways.
Yeah, and I think it's frustrating for a Lilith in the second house to hear it, because I don't think a Lilith in the second house is going to do or be with anybody that they don't want to be, you know, more than most people. So it's especially frustrating when they get that flack back.
This is a similar thing to Lilith and Taurus, but this is also somebody who can be aware of finances from a very young age, you know? Like that pressure to earn your own money can be put on you, and you can feel that, you know, like this is also, you know, obviously mixed with my Capricorn stuff, but when I was younger, I was like, I need to get a job because I want to earn my own money and I want to start making my way up. I've at least always feel like, you know, I finally did start to earn my own money, and then I was like, well, this isn't my own money because this is this company's money that they gave me, and this isn't the company's money because it's somebody, you know, kind of thing. Was like when I the first thing I thought when I was starting working.
Also, this is like off topic. I should mention, that's not off topic, but it still kind of is. But I kind of am wearing a shirt that relates to Lilith in the second house, because I was like, oh, it's cute. And if you look really close, Flower is like doing a fake little blowjob. So I was like, that's like Lilith in the second house.
These people can be, you know, we were talking about a lot of money because it does have a lot to do with that, but these people can kind of be cheap but smart about it. Like, they're not cheap that you think that they wouldn't spend a lot of money on things, but they're not going to spend more money on something than they think is necessary. These are people that are going to be like, as seen on TV, I don't trust it, let me look at the reviews. Or like, if I know that I want something, I'm gonna wait to get it until it's on sale, because I know I can wait it out. I know I can like outsmart them.
I think that's funny, the expression that you used, I know that I can outsmart them, because like that's kind of an attitude that I have when purchasing things. I'm always like dubious, like, is this too good to be true? Like, huge example is those, what are they called? Like subscription boxes, like a Birchbox or a FabFitFun. Those, I'm like, those are too good to be true. Like you just, those, they're pulling the wool over your eyes in some way.
The Lilith in the second house also kind of promises kind of some sacrifice and ostracization and criticism of the way you earn money, of your job, of what you do. It's probably going to be unconventional, maybe a little bit more of the occult kind of stuff, like me and Nina literally do astrology. Whatever you do though, it's not going to be easily accepted. It's not going to be like, you know, you're probably not somebody who wants to work a job where you clock in and you're just another employee and then you earn the same amount and it's like hard to work up and blah, 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 blah. Even though when you say that job, people will like accept it as a job with a thumbs up. You with your fucking Lilith in the second house, fucking entitlement and high, like maybe sometimes too high sense of self-worth are like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this other job that even though when I say it, it'll probably be criticized and looked down upon and be like, is that even a real job? But like, it's me, so you know.
Totally. Sacrifice. Yeah, we've been talking a lot in this series about how Lilith does have to do with sacrifice, and I think that it's just like a lot of times financial sacrifice because of leaning into your desires.
Also, like with Lilith in the second house, we talked earlier about how you don't want to owe anybody anything, but there can also be just a huge feeling in general that you owe people things, or that people can feel like not only do you feel entitled to things, but people can also feel entitled to your things, your time, your stuff, your money. Lilith in the second house really needs to learn how to share. Lilith in the second house can give, Lilith in the second house can definitely take, but they have a lot of problem sharing. But then there's also that thing where, you know, because it's Lilith in the second house, people can obsessively ask you too much and drain you, and you have to just make sure that you learn how to do both. You learn how to put up those lines, but not just putting up a line in the sand of that Lilith in the second house thing of like, I'm completely done. Nobody's allowed to use anything of mine ever again because I'm so tired of this and that and that, you know, that it's never going to happen, line in the sand. Or just kind of like giving it all over to everybody and then giving the wrong thing. You know, like I said, Lilith in the second house has a very emotional attachment to a lot of things. And I've definitely gone through phases where like I need to give everything away. I need to give things to people I know. They'll use it more. And, you know, I'll give away the wrong thing and then feel like so emotionally connected to that thing. You know, it's going to be a lifelong thing of learning, of giving, receiving, and sharing is like a big thing with Lilith in the second house, probably like the biggest thing. Yeah, and like Lilith in the second house, like just like Lilith in Taurus, it has that thing where it can like obsessively hoard money, be scared to give it away, because when does it have it? It doesn't know. It's scared it's going to be all taken away, because stuff has been all taken away from them out of nowhere, so is it going to happen again? That classic stuff.
Okay, so that was our very rambly, chatty, personal, but hopefully insightful, informational video on Lilith in the second house. Since we shared a lot of our experiences, we would love to hear your experiences as well in the comments below, and just what you thought of the video in general. Stay tuned for the rest of our Lilith series. You definitely have another one specifically for you coming your way, because we're doing Lilith in the signs and the houses.
Yeah, there's a bunch of links down below with a bunch of stuff. Nina's got her own channel. I've got my own shit that's down there. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope that you enjoyed.
Yes, thank you so much for watching. And it's probably not the holidays anymore, but you're gonna get this background for the next 3 videos, so happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays, guys. Bye.
Bye.